when you treat sex as purely as just the physical alone without understanding the underlying mechanics of how desire actually works in a marriage, in a long-term relationship, you miss out on a lot of that beauty and a lot of that depth that can come. My approach that I take is a intimacy first approach, and I define intimacy as knowing and being known. I think there are some specific habits that if any couple does, and any couple can do these habits, I'm going to tell you just a few of them. If you can implement them in your marriage, you're going to have a much sexier marriage.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Measuring Post. Joe Massa here in a place where we can learn and grow together. And today I've got a very unique story with an awesome individual who's going to be helping us with our marriages, our significant others, our intimate life. It's something that's very valuable to discuss, something we haven't really covered here on The Measuring Post. And again, it's one of those things that can be easily overlooked, but this man is going to tell us what we need to know and how to get our marriages back on track. He's host of the Get Your Marriage On podcast. He's a trusted voice that helps married couples not only build sexual vibrance, but emotionally safe marriages in a faith-friendly environment. So with that in mind, please welcome Mr. Dan Purcell to The Measuring Post. Dan, how are you today, sir?
Good, thank you. I'm happy to be here, Joe. This is great.
Yeah. I'm excited to have you on. This is one we've never really covered. And again, as a married man and somebody that's raising kids and, I got a son in college, these are all very valuable lessons in not only keeping the spark alive for your marriage, but understanding the needs of your partner, both on a sexual level, on an intimate level, on a friendship level. So I'm excited to see sort of what the work is that you do and how we can share that with our audience today. So with that in mind, kind of give us a quick background on Dan Purcell and what led you into this sort of a career path?
Thank you. I would think I'd be the last person on earth talking about this right now if you would have asked me years ago. But it's just so meaningful to me. It's led to what I do now. So been married 22 years. I have 6 children. My older two are college age also. My wife and I guess you could say we've been very fortunate. We've had a good marriage, good friendship. But when it came to sexual intimacy, there was a lot of anxiety we both inherited from our upbringing, I guess you could say. Just something we didn't talk about. Like we knew how to make babies, but we didn't know really how to talk about our experiences with each other in sex until 13 years into our marriage. And just to be brief, I had a conversation with a friend, and he opened up to me about his sex life. And this isn't like bro locker room talk, not bragging. It wasn't that kind of a conversation. He was just getting my attention, trying to tell me, like, Dan, once my wife and I really got our own sexual relationship, like, understood and like working well, everything else in our marriage has improved. We're communicating better. We're raising the kids together better. Like even my job and career is getting better. Like everything's getting better because we have this like area of a relationship that's thriving now. So he was really like, I don't talk about sex with people. They don't talk about like that. That's just such a taboo topic. I was really uncomfortable. I was blushing most of the time in the conversation, but I guess you could say I had morbid curiosity. That's like oh no, wait, tell me more. No, gross, wait, yeah, tell me more. I have a feeling. And he was telling me more about what he and his wife have tried and done and what's really helped them, and educational materials and things like that. And anyway, I didn't know what to think because I felt a lot of conflict inside. I wanted what my friend had. Like I could see it in his eyes. Just this bond he and his wife shared. I wanted that for my marriage too. But I just felt really uncomfortable with the whole topic of sex in general and just seeking out information, even typing in Google. I'm afraid of like running into things that I'd regret or down rabbit holes. Like, how do I know what's up or down or like right or wrong? So that night I had a conversation with my wife, Emily, about this conversation with my friend, and it was a 5-hour conversation. It was the most in-depth, open, vulnerable conversation we had about our love life to that point in our marriage. And I was really self-conscious, like, am I a good lover? Are you satisfied?
Sure.
Maybe you're not satisfied and you never told it because you don't want to hurt my feelings. Like, and then what do you think about X or Y or Z? Have you ever had things you're interested in doing, but you haven't like vocalized because, we don't talk about these things. So it was like a night of like really like, it was very tender, very vulnerable as we're talking about these things. And fast forward a few weeks, we decided we wanted to learn more together. Fast forward a few months, now my wife and I are experiencing what my friend and I experienced. Like, we're getting along better, we're communicating better, parenting together better. The sky is bluer, the grass is greener. Like, everything in life just has more color and meaning and depth. And we just have this home base feeling, this feeling of home, this bond between us that, like, holy smokes, how come no one's told us about how much good can come from a great sexual relationship, good sexual friendship? So that's anyway, that was so profound. It led to a career change, and now this is what I get to do to help couples full
No,
time.
it's awesome. I'm coming up on my 17th wedding anniversary myself, and we've got kids, and obviously we have our faith, and again, it's this is sort of a topic that gets swept under the rug a lot in
Hmm.
faith-based communities in general. It's sort of like the act of procreation and raising kids, but
Hmm.
we forget that we weren't always in our 40s. We used to be passionate 20-year-olds, and we
Right.
loved the sexual conquest experience, and you sort of lose a bit of that when you get into the hustle and bustle of life, and you got bills to pay, and you got jobs to tend to, and kids to raise, and you forget that there's this other person that's not only your wife, but it's a living, breathing partner that has needs, both physical, emotional, mental, and the like. So I love that you dove deep into that. And here's another important thing to remind yourselves: you didn't do this until 13 years into your marriage, so it's not like
Right.
you can have really healthy marriages that go a long time, and you don't really even talk about that giant elephant in the room, which is like, are you
Hmm.
enjoying when we do this as a married couple? So I love that you're sharing this experience, and it's good because a lot of men, and I think a lot of us, sort of the underlying theme is that people think men have these like locker room conversations all the time. We really don't. Like a lot of my
Mm-mm.
my male friends that married or non, we don't talk about our sex lives anymore. It's not like something you did when you were, a high school kid or a 23-year-old. You're like, oh, guess what I did last night? When you're in I mean, we don't talk about that. So to be vulnerable with a friend and to share that and to learn is something that I think more men should do specifically. I think women are probably a little better about that intimate sharing, but I would love to learn about sort of more of what Get Your Marriage On offers and the courses and education. So, obviously, the other thing that I would like to learn from you today is um, sex isn't just physical. There's a whole layer of intimacy that goes along with it. So, explain a little bit about what a healthy sex life looks for you now, besides the actual sexual engagement.
Great. Yeah. I guess I'm going to say that over again. There's a word, Joe, I'm trying to think of that I just for life can't think of. It's like a spirit of not not taking things. It's like in a joking way, cutting down other people or cutting down concepts. Um, this shows up a lot in meme culture online. What's that word?
Now my wheels are spinning. Um, I'm not sure.
Uh, okay. I want to answer that question, but I want to say it this way. Um, okay. Uh, Before I get into exactly like it's not just the physical, something you said reminded me a lot online. Yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of bro locker room talk, but there is a lot of this. They do joke about the pain that a lot of couples have in their
Yeah.
sexual relationships. For example, there was one video someone shared with me, and it's supposed to be funny, of this guy talking to his friend, complaining about how much his girlfriend wants sex from him. It's like every morning and every afternoon and every evening. I can't keep up with it. What do I do? And his friend says, marry her. And the joke is like once you're married, that's where romance goes to die. And I know it's supposed to be funny, but it's funny because um, for some people, for a lot of people, that is their lived experience, and it's sad. I don't think it should be that way at all. In fact, it should be even better. And but when you treat sex as purely as just the physical alone, without understanding the underlying mechanics of how desire actually works in a marriage, in a long-term relationship, you miss out on a lot of that beauty and a lot of that depth that can come. My approach that I take is a intimacy first approach, and I define intimacy as knowing and being known. This isn't about like uh this isn't always just the feel good side of intimacy too. Like, oh, you like me and I like you and you laugh at my jokes and I think you're cute. Like that's a part of it. But to really know someone and to be known is sometimes the parts that are invalidating. Like there's parts about me that my spouse may not like or doesn't find doesn't agree with, like we have differences around. And I could spend my whole marriage like trying to shield her from those things, trying to protect her from the parts of me that kind of invalidate myself from her. Or there's also the part like I want to be known. I want to be known by you because you can never love someone that you don't know well. If I want my wife to know me well, it's an act of courage for me to expose the parts of myself that are true to me that she may not always agree with or validate, I should say. And likewise, it's me a willingness to know her, even the parts that don't always validate my view of what I think should be, but it's actually being really willing to know and know her. That level of knowing is critical if you want to build a great sex life that lasts a long time.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's also very important for a successful marriage outside of even the physical side of it to have the friendship, that's involved in it as well. And one of the big things, it's easy to love people. You have to like them as well. And the
Yes.
liking is what's really the part that takes the most work. It's I love you. I love everything about you. We've had this history, we've built this life, this family, this home, and I love everything about that. But sometimes you're right. It's like she doesn't like me or I don't like her for the moment, because it's like we butt heads. Everybody argues. We have these little disagreements, but you have to be true and authentic with that person about not only who you are, but accepting their faults and flaws that maybe you don't agree with and still look at them every day and go, I still like you. I like when we get to hang out. And, our son's in college now. And while there's this hole in the house where it's like, there's an empty room now, but now we fill it with more time together. And I still have my daughter at home, which is great. But it's sort of reminding ourselves why we stayed together all these years. It's like when my daughter goes off and we're empty nesters at some point. I only have 2 kids. I haven't gotten the practice down quite like you to have 6 yet. But at this point, we'll have to rekindle that friendship even more. And like, what are we going to do when there's no sort of person in the middle that can be a distraction or no buffer, for a lack of a better word? So the liking and learning and being vulnerable, I think, is a really great takeaway for young married people to realize that you got to expose yourself and be willing to kind of put yourself out there under scrutiny, which is a very difficult thing to do.
Hmm. Oh, I like that. I agree 100%. Learning to like them. It's a friendship. It's a friendship. Doesn't mean you have to share every single activity or enjoy everything together, but there's this underlying warm regard towards each other that forms this foundation for everything else in your marriage.
Yeah, and also the willingness to like go above and beyond for that person without either
Yeah.
expectation of a return or
Yes.
without like being asked for that from you. Like there'll be things that my wife just will do that I find extremely encouraging to our marriage because I never brought it up. She saw a need and I try to do the same for her. Like sometimes her battery's low, sometimes she's missing something, sometimes she needs a release. Um, whether that's a physical or an emotional one. And it's my job to pick up on those cues and fill in those gaps for her. And because we've built a foundation on that with each other, we've gotten to this point in our marriage. And I feel like it gets stronger year after year. Is it perfect? Of course not. We've had fights, we've had ups and downs, we've hurt each other. Things have happened through our years and years and years of togetherness, but we keep getting up and choosing each other because we like each other. And I like to see her succeed. And she makes me better when I don't see it in myself. And also, if I'm getting a little too high and mighty on myself, thinking I can do no wrong, she has that innate ability to bring me back to earth and go, hey, let's let's get back to the way things work. And it's important to have that ability to genuinely communicate with your significant other.
Love that. That's great. Good.
So how do you navigate this, with having a lot of children, obviously daily lives, work? How do you personally, and then what do you suggest for people that you work with? How do you block off this time, and how do you open the lines of communication to have this discussion with your husband or wife?
Great question. So I want everyone to know that I have a very ordinary and normal marriage. Like we're not like we it's not like we're immune to the regular pressures of life. It's it is we're normal people. So uh and being normal means we're going to have our ups and our downs. We wax and wane also. But that being said, I think there are some specific habits that if any couple does, and any couple can do these habits, I'm going to tell you just a few of them. If you can implement them in your marriage, you're going to have a much sexier marriage. The first one is have a daily intimacy challenge. This is building a marriage. So I live near the Grand Canyon, which is amazing if you haven't ever seen it. It's like breathtaking. And it's all carved by water. It's just water consistently over time eroded and created this Grand Canyon. So if something so small but done consistently can have such a big impact, that's what I'm talking about. It's this principle of every day do something small that makes a positive impact towards building an intimate relationship. So I have an app called Intimately Us, which I've developed, and part of it includes a daily intimacy challenge. And my challenge this morning it was a spicier challenge, and I was to find a blindfold, put it on my wife's pillow with a little note attached. I don't know if we're actually going to go through with anything like that tonight, but it's coming from my heart. Like I'm celebrating us, that I think of her in a fun and flirty way. Now, another time I've come to work and I take my laptop out of my bag and there's a sticky note attached from my wife. And she's written a little something for me, like completely unexpected. And it means so much to me to see that note. Like she's thinking of me. She took the time to, sneak around when I wasn't looking to write a note and put it in my bag with the hopes that I would see it later. Like that's what I'm talking about. These little tiny things, they don't have to be like sexual per se, but it's things that show I love you, I care about you. And there's so much you can do there, but consistent, small, every day. Push yourself, do something. That's habit
No,
one.
I love that. Absolutely. In the notes, me and my wife do that. And, it's like, when my kids were growing up and in middle school and elementary school and I packed their lunch, I always put a note in there.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it,
yeah.
obviously that's not, a romantic gesture, but it's that same sort of concept of showing those little micro doses of, I thought of you right now. I love you. I'm thinking of you. I'm wishing best day for you. And those are really important, and those really solidify, um, the feelings you not only are having for that other individual, but it helps them feel it a little more, because it was something that was not asked. It was not pressured. It wasn't like, make sure you write me a note. No, because then that loses its luster. It was like, my son, always liked the little notes, and I did it for my daughter who's 6 years younger. And, there'll be times like when I forgot a note in her lunch, and the next day she's like, where was my note? Well, you didn't write me a note. And,
Yeah.
it's because you do start to expect those things, but not in a way, you just get so used to, you enjoy them. So when my wife does something little like that, it's like, it's this really bit of a dopamine hit. You really enjoy that and you really feel good about that. So to be able to give that to your significant other, even if it's something as simple as putting a blindfold on the bed, whether you use it or not, it's irrelevant. It's the idea that, hey, I saw this and I was thinking of you. And like,
Yep. I
that's
find you
sort of like,
sexy and compelling.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yep.
So how do you work this in with your faith? Obviously, I grew up Catholic. My wife's Christian, so that's a big part of our lives. And obviously, marriage and matrimony is very hand in hand with that.
Mm.
But I feel like sort of, it is, you said the right word earlier. It gets to be taboo. People don't talk about it. Like, if I'm a good church going person, I can't have sexual desires. Totally not true. In fact, if you don't, you're like going to lose your marriage. So how do you work in faith, sex, and like giving yourself permission to enjoy the sexual desires that we have?
Oh, great question. So I'm a Christian as well. One thing that's helped me understand is my approach is a developmental approach where we grow in stages of development. And there's a lot of theorists with psychology and others that talk about this too. And so I'm applying this more to like a spiritual sense. But let me give you an example. When your kids were little, like 2 years old, 3 years old, you don't want them running out into the street, right? You have the sidewalk and you have the pavement for the street. So you'd say, don't cross the street. Like it's a very black and white. You don't do this. Because at a 2 year or 3 year old's mind, they can't completely comprehend yet about cars coming by or other dangers that could happen. So you give them very specific black and white, yes, no kind of rules because it's going to help them and protect them and serve them at that level of development. But as they get older, you're not going to yell at your 10-year-old for crossing the street. Like they're 10. They can understand cars. They're developed to the point where they can handle more complexity and take into more things simultaneously, make better decisions. Sexually, it's the same way. So um, um, some people have an experience where to them, the religious teaching is very black white. This is okay. This is not okay. Um, bad people have sexual desires. Good people suppress their sexual desires or whatever it might be. And that might serve some people to a point at that level of development. So I'm not categorically saying that's wrong or bad because it actually could help people live better and fuller lives with by adhering to rules like that. But I don't think that's where we want to end. The goal is continual growth and development and integration. Just as I want to be an integrated person to have integrity means that I take into account my physical, emotional, cognitive, mental, and social, as well as my sexual aspects of myself into my whole being. So let's pretend for a minute you grew up in a home where brownies were bad, my favorite dessert. Like people who like brownies are bad people. Only bad people eat brownies. But you kind of like brownies.
Yeah,
Right? So
it's a dilemma.
you would behave one or the other. You would adopt that view, like only bad people eat brownies. I like brownies, therefore I must be a bad person. Suppress, 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 suppress. Or you might like when no one's looking, indulge, scarf down the brownies real quick, and then like, oh, I feel so guilty that I did such a horrible act, right? There's that side. There's also the rebellion side. This is like, oh yeah, well I'm going to show you that I can eat a right. Do you see how neat? Like, it's not that brownies are bad or eating brownies are bad. Like, there's so much goodness in that flavor and that taste. Of course, if that's all you eat, that's not a great way to live. But denying yourself of that may not. I don't know. You don't have to like it. Sex is one of those things though, where the metaphors always break down because it's not like chocolate, where you can live a good life without chocolate. Sex is so integral to who we are and our sexuality. You can't divorce sexuality from who you are. You can't live a thriving life without it. But my point is, so it's about integration. How do I live with healthy sexual desires that I can channel, that create goodness in the world, that build life, that breathe life into my marriage, that create a stronger bond, and integrate it? Now, when it comes to spirituality and teachings, the more I get into God's word in the Bible, the more and more I am convinced that God is a very sex positive God. He delights in couples' sexual union. There is so much goodness that comes from it. And I see evidence of it everywhere throughout Scripture. So my worldview has changed and my experience has changed. And I think this is just my testimony that God delights in couples' sexual thriving, and he wants that for every couple.
No, I love that. And you're absolutely right. You do have to integrate it into your whole existence. And again, a really good way to do that is by having those open lines of communication with your partner and being able to share your whole self, even the parts that maybe you try to hide or suppress, like your brownie eating, which now I'm like want a dessert. So I thank you
Yeah.
for that. But it's really important to say, hey, look, this is me. This is all of me. This is what I want. This is what I'm craving. How can we work this together, and how can we build that bond together? And when you really start speaking each other's love language, whether it's a note on a computer or any sort of act, once you start understanding your partner's love language and you speak it to them, it is amazing how much better other parts of your life get. It's such a valuable tool that you do realize then all of a sudden your friendship gets better, your work life gets better, just as you mentioned earlier. So that leads me to a question, because obviously you work with a lot of people in this space. So what are some of the common patterns that undermine intimacy in a marriage? Or what do you see is sort of the main sort of obstacles that people face, other than like, we don't communicate?
Yeah, great question. So I work primarily with happy couples who are in otherwise happy marriages, except they wish things were much better when it came to sex. So these are couples that are high functioning. They like their friends. They like each other. They, finances, check. Like raising kids, check. But faith, check. But sex, that's where there's a lot of, that's where they're having a lot of troubles. The number one problem I see is this idea of duty sex, where it's an idea that one person or both of them are complicit in this idea that sex is done out of an obligation or a duty for the other person. And it will destroy passion in a relationship. But it's kind of benign when it might seem benign when it starts. Because it's like, hey, it's been 3 days. Like, can we get it on? And which, by the way, is not a very sexy way to initiate. If you
Yeah.
want to invite your
I'm,
spouse,
I'm,
it's
I'm
like
guilty of having that
obligating them. It's
conversation.
like, hey, you owe me. That's
I'm
not.
like,
That's not
let's check the
inviting passion,
calendar.
right?
Yeah.
But we do it in many ways. I've seen some couples like take certain scriptures and use them as weapons. Like, hey, don't deny me. Like, it's a sin for you to deny your husband of this. In other words, saying, you're sinning right now because I want sex and you don't, and you're unwilling to have sex with me. You're in the wrong. So they do this pressuring, we do this manipulating a little bit. Or there's the other advice, like the bride receives before, marriage, mom or someone pulls them aside, like, give him sex whenever he wants, because if you don't, he might stray or look at pornography or whatever. So a good bride just is always willing to say yes, which I think is well-intended advice, but in practice, it sets up this like, oh, he's in the mood, I'm obligated. Like, as we joke, I hope this is appropriate for the audience. Like, the thought that she has is, if I get it up, I have to get it back down. So
No, I mean,
I've got something to do here. That I think is pernicious. And I see this sort of pattern said in like so many different ways, but the underlying principle is somewhere along the lines they've made sex some sort of an obligation or duty. And then they're wondering where the passion went.
yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it, because then we're treating sex like it's a problem that needs to be solved, as opposed to an experience that should be shared. And
Yes.
again, there's going to be times when I'm like, hey, babe, let's go.
Uh-huh.
Our daughter's at school or something. We got time. And she's like, dude, it's just, I'm not in that mindset right now. And I
Uh-huh.
have to remind myself too that it's my job to not just get it up and get it down. I also have to present the mood and the mode and date. You have to date even after
Yes.
marriage. If you
Yes.
stop dating because you got a ring on your finger, you're gonna find out really quick that things get stale. And that's something that I've really been um aware of and more cognitive of as I've gotten older, is like, life gets boring. All of a sudden my wife's like, it's 9 o'clock and she's in bed. And I'm like, it's Friday night. What are you doing? She's like, dude, I'm old. I don't care. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. So
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
you have to remind yourselves that as we age, we have to do it gracefully, but there's ways that we can still make things playful and creative and keep things alive. And part of that's having conversations that maybe scare you, or, like you said earlier when you were talking to your friend and you finally had the conversation with your wife, you're like, am I any good? Are you enjoying this? Like, is there things that you would prefer that I'm not doing? Those are tough conversations to have, because then there's sort of this level of like inadequacy that you feel. If she goes, I'm not enjoying what's going on currently, um, that can feel like an attack, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people tell you that when they're like, hey, I had this conversation with my husband or my wife, and they told me that they didn't like, the way I do things, or, they're not feeling fully satisfied. That could probably be like a almost a divorce level conversation to some people. But instead, my advice would be to take that really as constructive criticism and say, look, you love me, I love you, we're married, we built a life together. How do we keep those other areas of our lives fun and sexy?
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. And dating each other. I love that you brought that up. That's another habit every couple, if they did, would have a sexier marriage. And make it not just boring, make it creative. Make it a creative, fun evening. And you can also once in a while make it a sex date where the purpose of the date is to have sex in a very fulfilling way for both people. So plan ahead. Make that great for both people.
Yeah, and experiences, build experiences. I'm trying to get better as I get older. I'm much more aware of my time management. And,
Yeah.
there's this hustle culture that we all have growing up where it's like, I want to be an entrepreneur and a boss, and I got to run this business, and I'm working 60 hours a week. That doesn't leave a whole lot of time for love, romance, sex, parenting, friendships. So you get sucked in all these things that matter because your mind and your reality told you they matter. What I'm getting better at as I'm getting older is actually scheduling times where, like, once a quarter, we're going to go on a weekend vacation, even if it's a staycation. We're going to go on an adventure, monthly date nights or weekly date nights, things that may or may not lead to a sexual encounter with my wife. Though that's sort of irrelevant, but it's the act of dating and doing and living and reminding us that, like, hey, this Friday night, don't call your friends. I'm not calling mine. We're not cleaning the house. We're not doing chores. You're putting on that fancy dress, and I'm going to, get my good shirt out of the closet, and we're going out. And
Uh-huh.
it's important to have those. And if you schedule it, it doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel like it's last minute. It doesn't feel like an afterthought, like it's something to look forward to. And you go, hey, babe, a couple days away, we're going on that date night. And then all of a sudden, it's this level of excitement that you're building together because of an upcoming shared experience you'll have.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Love that.
You can use it. It's
Yeah.
yours.
Thanks.
So no, like, part of Get Your Marriage On, which, by the way, getyourmarriageon.com, that's the website. When we do post this, I'll link back to that. But what are some of like the real life tools and stuff that you offer for people that are in the beginning stages of trying to revive their intimate life?
I've got a few different trailheads. The first one, probably the easiest, most accessible, is a mobile app called Intimately Us. It's free to download in the Google Play Store and Apple App Store, and it includes that daily intimacy challenge component that I talked to you about. It also includes a bunch of bedroom games. And a bedroom game is, let's say it's date night, you've come home, and now you want to get frisky, and you want to be playful about it. You can open up the app, and we've got many different games to choose from. Some of them are goofier, some are a little more thoughtful, whatever fits your mood at the time. And you can always adjust it to your level of preferences too. But these games are designed to help you get in the mood, try new things, be playful, and have fun. There's also a bunch of articles in the app. So that's the Intimately Us app. I also offer coaching. I at two different levels. I have a like a membership group coaching program at a low price point that a lot of couples take advantage of. A lot of couples see a lot of success with that. It includes a course that I've developed. And then I also offer private coaching. And this is for couples that really want more of that private one-on-one work. I also do retreats. Our next in-person retreat's in April. It's sold out. We're doing a cruise in October. We have the podcast, of course, and a bunch of other resources that I offer on the website.
Awesome. No, that's great. And especially for somebody that's really considering, like, hey, maybe there is a problem there, or maybe we're getting stagnant, but I don't really know. I just got to do some high level, or deep soul searching. A great place to go would be like an app where you got some articles, and then what you quickly realize when you're in a group setting or in a community or there's an app created, the reason somebody took the time to develop an app and write articles about this is because there's a lot of people going through these same
Yeah.
exact scenarios. So, there's always sort of this underlying feeling like I'm a failure if, like, my sex life isn't amazing or my marriage is on the rocks or whatever's going on internally. It's really easy to project that out and be like, man, people are probably looking at me. And there's this shame and this guilt that goes into it. But being married for a long time is hard. It's hard to just imagine having just a roommate, a platonic roommate for 18 years. That would you guys would get on each other's nerves. That's part of life. It's hard to I love my children to death. I would die for them. I would kill for them. Sometimes I don't want them in the house because I'm like, you guys drive me bonkers. Of course I
Right,
love you.
right.
Has nothing to do with that, but it takes a lot of work, and you're not a failure or a letdown to anyone, including your wife or husband, if you're struggling in certain areas. And the real bravery comes when you address it and you say, hey, maybe our sex life has fallen off a little bit. Maybe it's gotten stagnant because of work, age, health, kids, responsibilities. But I know that I want to fight for it, and I want to get back in and put in the work. And that takes a bit of bravery to admit, hey, maybe I'm part of the problem, but let's work on it. So
Hmm.
I love what you're doing and what you're building. I think it's a very valuable tool. And Intimately Us is an app that you can download for free. So I will absolutely be getting a copy of that.
Great. Good, good.
So again, getyourmarriageon.com. And the podcast, I'm assuming, do you do weekly shows, monthly shows? People can find that Spotify, Apple as well.
That's right. And it's weekly and it's everywhere you like to listen to podcasts.
Beautiful. And again, I actually run a podcast network, so I'll go ahead and get your show on there as well. That'll give me another area to showcase and share this great information for. But sort of in closing, what's one thing you really want marriages and people in marriages to know, and sort of a good piece of working advice, something that they can use like on day one without paying for coaching? Like, what's a really actionable starting piece for people that are maybe in the beginning of this sort of journey with their significant other?
I would say talk about it. Learn how to really talk about your sex life. I talked to someone earlier this morning and he's like, Dan, we have a good marriage, but every time I bring up, how I want more frequency, it's met with so much resistance. And I'm afraid to bring it up because more often, because she'll shut down, things get cold, and then I'll get nothing. So I guess I'm fine for something rather than nothing, but I really wish things were better. And his story is not unique. So many couples have it's heartbreaking to me sometimes. There's poverty in bedrooms. Like I really want couples
Yeah.
to have a rich, rich bedroom. And it's not just about frequency, by the way. It's about more soul, bring more heart to the matter. So if when this man and his wife can learn how to talk about their experiences better without it sound like accusation or without her being so defensive all the time or uh, without it turning so cold and negative all the time. Rather, it's more about a spirit of collaboration. So learning how to collaborate. Sex is going to be one of the hardest areas in your marriage where you can really collaborate well. But once you learn how to do that better, every other area of your marriage, you'll learn how to do that. Uh, you'll learn how to collaborate better too. Collaboration is the key. And it, in order to collaborate, though, it requires you to be humble, to be a willingness to look at reality for what it really is, to be willing to give your spouse room for his or her own opinion and honor that as equal as your own. You can't take a superior attitude like, I got to figure it out. You're the broken one. We need to get you fixed. Like that does not ever, rarely ever invite positive change in a relationship. So it really is, it's about taking this step at a time, um, collaborating and inviting and learning how to talk about it and talk about it well. I think that's the key takeaway I want people to hear today.
No, and I think that's such a it seems like common sense, but it's not always. And we sometimes make it more of a mechanical thing, instead of like an intimate act.
Mm.
And I think it's really important to have that open dialogue and be willing to maybe unlearn some things also to rebuild up a better sexual life and intimate relationship with your significant other. But again, you said something that I think is important because I feel like I have a great marriage. It sounds like you've got a great marriage. Not everybody does. Some people do drift apart. Kids get older. People are, diverging instead of reconnecting. So there's definitely this level of like understanding where you are in your marriage and understanding what the future looks like and if there is a future there. But again, I don't think you can even have that discussion until you truly dissect where you're at currently. But again, you also said something that I think is probably very common to hear. It's sort of the weaponization of sex. Like, I'm not giving you any. Or like if I go, hey, I'm really interested in more frequency, and it completely shuts her down and goes ice cold,
Uh-huh.
that's a weaponizing of the sexual, it's holding it ransom at hostage.
Right.
So that's, I'm sure, something that a lot of couples need to address. Like, hey, I'm going to not be so mechanical and cold and just be like, hey, it's the day, it's Tuesday, it's sex day. And you got to also work on maybe being a little more open to the idea of having sex and not always shutting it down anytime the subject comes up. So that's sort of those trade-offs and, um, negotiations, for lack of a better word, compromises that you have
Mhm.
to work on together. So I think it's great advice. And I think this is a service that a lot of marriages probably could benefit from, and a lot of younger married people can learn from. Like, hey, you're not always going to be a hot 22-year-old. You're going to get old and you're going to get gray hairs and you're going to get a bad back and you might have to plan a little more, but don't give up on your dating experiences. Don't give up on the intimate side and
Uh-huh.
be willing to adjust along the way.
Yeah. Speaking of aging, though, there is one benefit to aging and sex, and it is this. They do all these studies and sex research. Who's having the best sex out there? And it's consistently those that have been married 30, 40 years, which is kind of goes against what like Hollywood would like you to believe, right? And that's when you realize good sex is far more to do with heart than it has to do with your body and how it's functioning. It's although that's an important part, let's not disregard that. You make love with your heart, not with your body. So as you age, the benefit you have is you bring more of a self to it. Like this is the person that you've gone through difficult times with, the person that you argue with. Sometimes you actually hate them sometimes. This is the person that you've shared with you all your burdens and highs and lows. And this is the person that means more to you than anyone else. And you're looking into their eyes, bodies close together, tucked into each other. And just this is when it can be really soulful. Like, this is my heart. This is me. And I want you to see all of me. That to me is like so good. Like we can get there.
Yeah, true vulnerability, really
Yeah.
exposing yourself. It's one thing like when you're in the dating scene and it's like the first time you're hooking up with somebody and it's like, there's the level of like, "Oh, I got to get naked now." So there's that weirdness, awkward, day one stage where you got to bear all literally and, figuratively. But when you do it after 20 years and you're bearing more than your physical naked body, which
Yeah.
as you get older changes, it's the soul under it, it's the heart under it, it's the effort in it. And I think that's something that's really lost in translation. And I couldn't have said it better. I love that approach and that sort of mindset of like, you know, our sex life is getting better. Maybe frequency is down. Maybe the length of the session isn't what it used to be. Whatever those numbers and those sort of metrics might change, the actual enjoyment and connection that's felt during that far superior as you're getting older. So I definitely agree. Us old folks, we got one thing going for us. So I like
Yeah.
it.
Good.
Well, again, hey Dan, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this. Again, that app is called Intimately Yours, correct? And
Intimately
that's
us.
available.
Uh-huh.
Intimately Us, excuse me. Intimately Us on Apple and Google. Download your free copy there. Check out getyourmarriageon.com. Maybe consider doing a retreat, one that's not fully booked up, obviously. And again, I love your metaphor, so I'll end with it, of the Grand Canyon. Remember, the Grand Canyon didn't get built overnight. It was millions of years of consistent action and effort. And if you put that same little bit every day into your marriage, you're going to get far more out of it than you ever expected. So, Dan, I appreciate you coming on to the Measuring Post, and very, very great information, and keep doing the great work that you're doing, my friend.
Thank you very much.